Hello all! Today I'll be working on a scarf with some of the last of the Aqua Angora yarn from a thrift store haul and talking about my medical alert cat Penelope Calico. I hope you enjoy. My name is Took. I'm a disabled genderqueer weaver who's had life take odd turns, but who knows that even tattered and worn yarn still has value, and that tired joints and health flares don't have to stop the journey. I weave exclusively with secondhand fibers, aided with adaptive warping, HR and OSHA cats, and a wonderful found family. Welcome to Hawksong Weaving, where all our paths are a little bit warped. First, a bit of an explanation on why I've developed this adaptive warping method. I have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which has cascaded into postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So for time's sake, know that I have joints that don't work well, and if I shift positions too quickly, I get pre-syncope or pre-fainting symptoms. All of this comes with chronic pain, so for a lot of reasons, a traditional warping board doesn't work for me, along with being really expensive and taking up a lot of space in my small studio. So I use an accordion coat rack as my warping board. It's nice and neat and contracts into a smaller space, and I can adjust it as I need to. And I don't need to be up and down and all around and having tachycardia, a racing heart, that stresses out my medical alert cat Penelope. Penelope isn't trained as a medical alert cat. She's not licensed as a service animal outside of my paperwork from my therapist assigning her as an emotional support animal. Side note, the only way to get an emotional support animal paperwork or ESA paperwork is through a therapist or psychiatrist writing that letter. There are websites saying that they offer paperwork. These are scams. There is no licensing for ESAs. They aren't trained to provide services, but many of them do pick up behaviors that help stabilize and support the moods of their humans. Penelope's medical alert behaviors adapted from that stabilizing and support. Although, to be honest, originally she was gotten as an emotional support for my emotional support animal, Hades Himbo, and has not always been consistent on the emotional aspect, but is consistent on the medical aspect. From what I'm able to piece together from her current behavior and what I was told by her previous humans, Penelope Calico was conceived and spent her early kittenhood in a hoarding situation where she was malnourished before being rescued by animal services. As such, she has slightly disproportionate limbs, joint pain that we manage via CBD, pica, and shows PTSD triggers around food, the food bowl being empty. She's very aware that I'm the one who fills the food bowl and scoops the litter box. And between knowing insecurity at a young age and balanced with her view of me as a large, incompetent kitten, she gets protective and bossy with me. The problem is that she's usually right. I will sometimes joke it's like having a border collie and a husky in the body of a cat. Over time, Penelope has grown into her role as a medical alert cat. What does this mean in practice? It means that if I'm overdoing it physically while I'm at home, and I'm triggering my POTS or fatigue, she'll scream at me and be pushy until I sit down. She's even wielded her pica against me by chewing loudly on something near my armchair so that I have to get up quickly and go stop her, then resulting in the rapid shift of position, making my syncope flare so I have to sit down. The problem with this is that anything I do that increases my heart rate or messes with my breathing is disapproved of. This includes singing, laughing, or being really happy, and occasionally narrating videos. And I get why she doesn't trust those things, because I will often push my body past where it should be pushed, and how is she supposed to know that which things are okay for it and which aren't? I love her so much, but again, I'm never getting another Calico ever again. I cannot deal with the tortitude. Please, can I just have very stupid male cats? Hades Himbos does not cause this amount of trouble. With the warp threads sorted, I'm lifting up the loom to release the warping board from the loom, gathering the warp threads into one large bundle and using the back of my neck to drape them over and keep them tidy and out of the way, while I collapse the warping board and get it tucked out of the way until I'm at a full pause point where I can get it unclamped from my desk. I use terry cloth towels to cushion the warp threads. This helps prevent the finished weaving from being tighter at the ends and looser in the middle, creating a sort of sausage profile in the weaving, and is a lot simpler than using curled over cardstock, which can be slippy and go all over the place and just generally be a pain in the rear. I love when I'm able to estimate a length of warp based on a ball of yarn. It's really satisfying to get that right, and that little bit of yarn won't go to waste. The way I warp has me cutting the warp loops at the end of winding the warp. This is what's easiest on my body. It won't work for everyone, but that's okay. This isn't a great angle, but I'm being careful to pay attention to how the warp threads are laying on the back bar of the loom, and the right hand thread goes through the smaller hole in the rigid heddle reed. It's not critical, and some minor mistakes aren't the end of the world, but it does make it easier to keep the tension of the warp threads even across the entire weaving. I'd like to thank you for watching. If you'd like to support my work, some free ways to do that are to like, subscribe, or follow, and share. This applies to other small artists as well. It's a great way to let the social media algorithms know that this is content worth watching. If you'd like to support me financially, there's a Buy Me a Coffee linked below, which acts as sort of a tip jar. Also, now that there are so many of you absolutely fantastic and wonderful subscribers, I've been able to link the online Hawksong Weaving shop, so feel free to check out the unique handwoven products. They are going fairly quickly because this is market season, but if you're wanting something along those lines for a loved one for the upcoming holidays, now is the time to order them before my stock gets too depleted. The next bit is absolutely a joke, but just in case, in this economy I won't say no. For $1,000 a month, you can tell me that I'm not actually disabled, I'm just lazy, and to try whatever yoga, juice cleanse, snake oil nonsense to fix your cousin. Feel free to message me and I'll get you my payment deets. I take Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. Attaching the warp to the bottom apron bar is pretty easy. I finger comb it, get it separated into bits about 4 to 5 warp threads wide, separate these bits into 2, and then do a half hitch tie to the apron bar. Now on to the actual fun bit, the weaving. For this scarf, I'm doing a pseudo ombre pattern. I've got the last of the warp attached with a double ply with the Angora wool that will be the throughout for this entire piece. But you can see that I'm shifting various colors throughout the weaving process for that second ply. The second ply is all entirely made out of various merinos from various thrift stores. And I'm really it was so much fun to weave this. Everything was so soft, and it's that natural soft, not that microfiber soft that catches on the calluses on your hands. This just slides through your fingers, and it's just, weaving these scarves has been an absolute sensory joy. You can see me playing with the settings for my documentary. I prefer to watch documentaries or listen to history podcasts while I work. Nature documentaries for the most part, but there are some sociological documentaries that I absolutely adore as well. If anyone's curious about those, I'm happy to give recommendations. If by chance you're wondering how to get a cat like Penelope Calico, I can't really help you there, but I can tell you how I got her. First, for me, I had Persephone. She was adopted from a shelter. Older black longcoat cats aren't adopted frequently as all. She tolerated me at best, and I adored her for it. But when I was in the middle of the pandemic, Hades Himbo was gifted to me as the runt of the litter from an acquaintance's cat. And I was given this tiny scrap of brown fur, and I had Persephone, so I decided to name him Hades, and I thought it would be hilarious. But then he kept growing and growing and growing, until it became very clear that his father was the Maine Coon Bengal Tomcat that had been running around town all summer. He has so many siblings in southern Vermont. Persephone passed away when Hades was 6 months old, so I posted on a rehoming pet group on Facebook, "Teenage male Maine Coon mix seeks dominant female cat to bash him on the head on a regular basis." An hour later, Penelope's previous humans posted, "Diva Calico seeks family where she is boss or only cat. Will chew on your wires when she's annoyed with you, which is often. We're only rehoming her because she's going after our infant." Everyone in the group tagged the two of us, and Penelope came home the next day and has been beating Hades Himbo up ever since, much to his utter delight, and screaming at me about my heart condition, much to my lack of delight, but begrudging acceptance and appreciation. In the middle of weaving this project, it turned out to be Saturday, and I went to one of the last farmers markets of the season that I was able to go to. Because it's market season, I don't get to go to these very often in the fall, but it was just a glorious, gorgeous day. And of course, you've got to get coffee. Just, lovely day. Once I was done with the length that I wanted, I tied off the scarf fringes. I prefer to do a 2x2 warp tied into a fringe of 4, but we'll do a double sliding knot of 3 if I don't have a wide enough warp. Now to unrolling the scarf and seeing the initial view, I was so pleased with how this turned out. The subtle ombre at the end with that little stripe, just, it was lovely. It was fantastic, marvelous even. Ha ha ha. I don't know why I'm feeling in this particular silly mood this morning. I'm guessing the caffeine has not yet hit while I am editing this. I usually steam block before I tie off my fringe knots, but because the merino for the warp was unraveling more quickly than I was wanting, I decided to just quickly do the tie off. So I grabbed my, don't ask me how much I spent on these good shears and trimmed it. And between half hour and 45 minutes of tying the fringe knots, it's not usually like necessary unless like cases like this with a fairly loose spin on the warp, but it is definitely something, even when it's not absolutely necessary, that I like to do to create a more finished looking product. Once tying everything off was finished, I did end up steam blocking it. It wasn't quite fully necessary with this scarf because it was so well held together with the merino and the angora, but it is a finishing touch that I really prefer to do. Thank you for coming along as I wove a scarf from the different thrift store yarns and used up some of the last of this angora. I'm so glad for the odd turn that your path took that brought you here. Thank you for spending time with me at Hogsong Weaving, where we're all a bit warped. And I hope that you have a truly excellent week.